1975. And soon thereafter, within a year or two, the department celebrated its 50th anniversary with a gala event. There was talks and everything. But anyway, there's a lot of discussion of the history of the department. And as a person who was not exactly an outsider, but certainly one of the newest members of the department, I reflected upon the story that was being told about this department that started as an agricultural chemistry department in the mid to late 40s, and how much it had changed. And as the stories were recounted, it became clear that this transition, although not sudden, certainly happened in the mid-70s, which was when Jim Wild and Martyn Gunn, among others, joined the department. And I think they are representative, if not responsible for much of the transformation that occurred in the years that followed to bring us to the modern, future-oriented, molecularly oriented biochemistry department that we know today. So I think for that fact alone, we owe Jim and Martyn a great round of thanks and gratitude. Of course, we all look at these events. Of course, we all look at these events with our own particular prism of experience. And when I think of Jim Wild in particular, these days more than ever, I'm mindful of the fact that he was department head both in the late 80s and in the 6.5 years leading up to when I took over in 2000. And in thinking about the circumstances, it couldn't have been easy to relinquish the reins of this well-honed machine to a rookie who had no clue. And believe me, that's what the situation was. I think Jim and I, and to a certain extent Martyn, because he served as an interim department head for a couple of years, the job has a much wider range than you imagine getting into it. And so, but Jim had the good grace to let me make my own mistakes, and then at appropriate times, occasionally, quietly come in the office and give me a little advice, and then quietly leave and let me make more mistakes. But I thought, and I continue to appreciate how he handled that situation, which to a lesser individual could have been an awkward one, but was no problem at all between the two of us, and I am forever and continue to be grateful for that. So, for that, another round. Martyn was in place as the associate head for undergraduate programs when I became department head. And as I was telling him earlier today, he was my rock. Because he had been around the lab a few times, he knew, which I know now but didn't know then, that for every crisis there was going to be other crises, and you didn't have to worry too much about an immediate crisis. I get something, I told Martyn, what do we do about this? Oh, relax, Greg, I'll take care of it. John, is that a great thing to hear? And so Martyn was a great shoulder to lean on. But the other thing, of course, that Martyn did was take care of the undergraduate program, and he did far more than just be a caretaker of this program. Many of us who are caught up in graduate education and research problems on a day-to-day basis can lose sight of the fact that from the university's point of view, it's our undergraduate mission, which is the mission of the university, and everything else is kind of frosting on the cake. If you don't believe me, just ask any one of your favorite regions about this fact. So Martyn not only shepherded the program, our undergraduate program, but he innovated. And he did a lot of things with our undergraduate program that that the upper administration noticed. Like, he pioneered the concept of learning communities, for example, and the organization we call GAVI that persists today, that allows the first and second year students to have a sense of the larger mission of the university and the larger sense of what the educational experience is all about. And we were both blessed and victimized by this, because it is indeed the fact that he really pioneered much of these efforts for the university that the department received great acclaim, but also Martyn received a lot of notice, and it's directly due to those efforts that he got snatched away from us, the upper administration, several years ago now, and we had to just acknowledge his membership in our department from afar. But he really benefited the department in many profound ways with respect to what he did with the undergraduate program, and I think we need to. Now, I'm not quite to the age and status of my career that Jim and Martyn are, although I'm getting a lot closer than I would like to think. But since I was only here for less than half of their careers, many of you in this room overlapped with them much more completely. But the person who overlapped most completely, that still is obligated to at least listen to me when I make a suggestion, i.e. isn't yet retired, is Rye Young. So I asked Rye if he couldn't provide a more thorough retrospective of the career of these two guys than I could manage, and he was happy to oblige. He had only one requirement, two requirements actually. One requirement was that he go after me, and the second requirement was that you not touch your champagne until after he's done and he can propose a proper toast. So with that, I will turn the stage over.
Right. You know, all the bottles will be gone.
You won't have it.
Sorry.
I started.
Oh my.
You have the priority. So when Greg talked to me about this, I said, "Oh, I can just wing it." And then I said, just for safety's sake, I'll get a copy of their CD. So it's Jim's is 48 pages. That's a short CD. Martyn at least synopsized his. But then I realized that I'm 66 this year, eligible for Social Security. I've known these guys since 1978, when I came here, for more than half my life. And they mean a lot to me. Both of them. They had a huge impact on my career, and indirectly. So this is a heavy responsibility, and I hope I can do it. So I'm not going to. I am known as the Fidel Castro of this type of thing, so I'm going to 25 pages of my prepared remarks about this. But I think other than, well, there are two people here who need to be recognized who actually have a longer perspective than I do, and that's Nick Pace and Ed Harris. Nick came here in 1968, and Ed Harris came here in 1973. Both of you need a hand. You're still plugging away. Unfortunately, they're both retired, and so Greg couldn't lean on him like he could on me. And I think Ed actually has a few things he wants to say, so shake half your champagne for the toast after the one I'm going to propose. So I'm glad I took the chance to look at their CVs, because despite the fact that I know they had a huge impact on my career in the department, I didn't realize how much stuff they'd actually, they needed to realize a lot of the work they'd been able to accomplish. So let me just cite a few facts. This is tough, because it's two different guys that I had a huge amount of respect for, and so I've had to sort of review what they've been doing. So he came here, Martyn Gunn came here in 1975, all right? So the Vietnam War was just in there at the time. I know that a lot of you weren't even born then. He came, let me tell you about the transition that Mark made. He did his PhD in London. He did his postdoc on Broad Street in Philadelphia, and then he landed at Eggman as a ground running and apparently made the transition very well, because in his first 10 years, not only did he rise to the rank of full professor, he published 21 peer-reviewed articles, 4 PLOS 1. So these are actually all got reviewed, including the senior author paper in Nature, which a lot of us haven't quite yet accomplished. And he carried 2 NIHR 1s for most of that period. And then in the mid-1980s, which I have to say was a rather turbulent period, after these remarks in the corner, I'm going to tell you about the turbulence that went on in the department. Marty, during that time, he'd already risen to be the number 2 person in the department, but he actually began his first very distinguished career in administration after all the success in research. And he served 2 stints as head of our department over about a 5-year period in a very stressful circumstances where things were not quite as programmed as they are now. At that point, as Greg has alluded to, he moved on because of his skill level and a lot of his creativity at the undergraduate and graduate instruction level. He went on to become Dean of Undergraduate Programs, Associate Provost, and Vice Provost for Academic Services. His fingerprints are all over our program, our academic program as we know it now, including the structure and the courses that we think of as our standard, but a lot of these didn't exist before Martyn discovered his creativity. He's won the Association of Former Students Teaching Award, Distinguished Teaching Award twice, once at the college level and at the university level. He also has, so everybody has a distinguishing thing, many distinguishing things in case of Martyn, but I just been looking at the number of unpaid positions he's had over the past 25 or 30 years. He chaired the Faculty of Nutrition, which is not only unpaid, but not appreciated. He served as Speaker of the Faculty Senate, which is another one of those jobs. I also was astounded at how many standing and ad hoc committees he worked on. I counted 35 at the department at the university college level chair. And if you know anything about the department chairs like the Quality Enhancement Clown Council, the Task Force to Examine Admissions Review Criteria, and the Texas Human Nutrition Conference Committee, if you're the chair, that means you do all the work. No one answers the phone. So it's an amazing record, with scholarship and research accomplishments, and also all of the work he did for the department and for the teaching. And I have managed to avoid doing any of those things. I feel it's humbling, and I feel guilty, although not that guilty. The one thing about Martyn you have to say, though, no one who knows Martyn would disagree that the first thing you get when you walk into Martyn is a dazzling smile. This guy has made me happy in times when I was depressed, dozens and dozens of times. So he's just one of these people that makes other people feel better. Now, Jim Weil, on the other hand, that's not the transition I where's my notes about Jim? Jim and I have a lot in common. We were both naval officers just before we came here. That means we have short hair. And we were both kind of on the periphery of this department. I was in medical biochemistry. He was actually in genetics and plant science at the time. And I came in 78. Martyn came in 76, and Jim came in 75. Right? I think that's about right. So we all came within about a 3-year period. So I was trying to think of a good lead-in to Jim's character, because there's lots of things he's told me that I can't repeat here. But I finally realized where it all came from. It turns out, as a graduate student, he taught a full semester course in California in 1968 in human sexuality. So I desperately tried to find the notes. I mean, we all had pride and stuff, but teaching a course in it is just so. I actually had a couple of other things to say about that, but I did not think that a Catholic daughter was here, so. Anyway, we need to talk later. Yeah. So, he transitioned he transitioned to bio in 1980, and within the first 10 years, again, like Martyn, in his first 10 years at A&M, he rose to the rank of full professor. And again, like Martyn, he showed his willingness to share his talents and energy at leadership level. He was, as I found out, 5 times the first elected chair of the Faculty of Genetics, and 4 more times after that, over a period of 3 decades. Now, there are a lot of unpaid and unappreciated jobs, but nothing compares to the chairmanship of the Faculty of Genetics. It's an important thing. Nothing compares to that. So he's also, over 2 different stints, served as our department head for 10 years or so. And again, I think it was important, but not as hard as the faculty. I think we were a better, more disciplined group. Besides, you controlled our salaries. So he went on to shoulder the load at a higher level at the Executive Association in Coles for about 5 years. His research career has led to more than 160 peer-reviewed publications and recognition by being elected to the American Academy of Advancement of Science in 1998. His list of awards and recognitions are just truly amazing. He even got one in the Navy. I mean, I was in the Navy to avoid the Vietnam War. He got an award for distinguished something or other. I sat down and counted just briefly the number of semester courses he taught in biochemistry and genetics, and I think it's 127. 127 real courses. These aren't seminar courses. These are 127 semester courses. That's a lot of courses, and 15 to 120 students. It's a huge number of students who have had a huge impact. Jim's had a huge impact on our productivity in that regard. I think, looking back over the past 30 years, we've met more often at the Xerox machine on Monday night than any other time. He, because he had a class every day, I, because once a week I would be late getting my handouts ready, and once a year. Jim was an amazing teaching machine. If I look back, he's had, his lab has produced 20 undergraduate honors theses, which are almost as much work as PhD theses, 17 postdocs and visiting scholars, 11 of his 23 PhD students have gone on the faculty with him. I didn't even want to start on his grants and contracts. He started ahead of me, and he's still better funded. So, and in fact, as far as I can tell, his retirement just means he'll still be running a lab with more pain. So,
but it's what better things to serve as
I thought to myself, why did Greg give me this honor? I think it's because it's a gentle hint, you know, I can get a dinner like this myself. Anyway, there's no way you can do justice to careers like this. These people have had a huge impact on us, even an indirect impact. By agreeing to do all the thankless things they've done over the years, that means that the rest of us didn't have to do them. I think what we have to do, this isn't goodbye to either one of them. Martyn and his wife have a place in Modesto, California that's got a reserved biochemistry. Right, and Ann's going to give a discount for optometry. So no one's going away. This is not goodbye. So what we need to do is have a toast. Let me have my one. So it won't mean as much to Martyn because he wasn't in the Navy, but Jim and I shared this. So there's in the Navy, when you've done well in a naval action, they put up 2 flags, the D and the Z flag. And so I'm going to give you that flag, Jim. Bravo Zulu, which means well done. Both Jim and Martyn.
Everybody's going to stand up.
Congratulations and more to come.
Here.
So Ed, you have another coach you want to propose?
No, I'm going to have a little talk.
All right.
Very short. Very, very short. Please have your seats. Good to be back with you again. one of your senior members, and I humbly also apologize to Nick. We were here when Martyn and Jim came on board. So let me just I don't have the extensive notes that Ronnie has, so I'm just going to kind of go over some things. Some of the things I'm going to tell you is just made up. Other things are actual facts. So I'll let you decide which is right. I seem to remember when Jim came here, we wondered who was this guy. You know, he comes to us, he seems to be a multi-talented person. He has expertise in biochemistry, or we hope he did have that expertise. We weren't quite sure of that at the time. But he was also a specialist in this interesting field called genetics. Oh, what's that? What are you doing in biochemistry? Well, it turns out that at that time we weren't aware of it, but biochemistry was undergoing a revolution. We were no longer a science that was basically focusing primarily on metabolic events that are occurring with carbohydrates and fats and so forth. We were now going into the nucleus, and we were going to find out what genetics was doing in the nucleus, and we were finding out from Jim that biochemistry was a key to making these decisions. So, Jim, with your total background in all these different subjects, we kind of felt, gee, whatever course we offer in this department, Jim could teach it. Because he was, talented over all the reasons. So anyway, as it turned out, I seem to remember Jerry O'Donovan was part of this situation too, bringing Jim in. But let me just say just exactly what Jim's impact was. All of a sudden, we started to see in a very quiet way, because we weren't really allowed in your laboratory. We were doing things we didn't understand anywhere. Jim was introducing us to words like plasmids, restriction nucleases. You know, these are biochemical terms we now just as commonplace. But the department was undergoing a revolution, a change, moving in that direction, and Jim was spearheading that effect. So when a person does a gel experiment, they put a little picture of the gel on a sheet of paper or something, and they say, this is what I found. Jim does a gel experiment with a restriction nuclease, and that darn thing is what, 3 feet long? And you put it on your front door, and everybody walks by and says, what the heck is this? And you were never around the house. So that was part of it. That was Jim's contribution to the department. He really got us into molecular biology as it was evolving on a national level. So we felt that we could enter into this very esoteric area of biochemistry with Jim as our leader. Well, so much for Jim. Martyn. What is my recollection of Martyn? He's an Englishman. He talks funny. We don't understand him. How do you talk to an Englishman? Now here's the fictitious part. So we called a department meeting. We were trying to determine how we were going to talk to Martyn Gunn. And we decided that, well, let's see. First of all, we're going to try to get him to say y'all. That took a little while. And then what else did we do? Well, we were told that, look, just whenever you talk to them, tell everything's jolly good. You understand? And also use bloody in every other sentence. Well, Martyn, I did a very nice job giving you the dossier for Martyn. Really a terrific leader in the department, a terrific teacher, well rewarded with his efforts. He offered he had the sobriquet of being called Top Gun. Remember that? We didn't understand what that meant. We thought that maybe Martyn put that on because he'd draw more students in thinking that Tom Cruise was their president. Whatever the trick was important. But Martyn really his short stay in the department as our interim department head, I seem to remember that went on without long. Everything was perfect. We wanted him to stay on more permanently. But then he came back when we did get a permanent head, and he took over the undergraduate program committee. And he basically put that committee at a very high level of expertise. Very high level of letting the faculty for the first time see the quality of students that we were dealing with. And that made a very terrific impact on us. So, we were very sorry to see Martyn kind of leave the department momentarily, I guess, where he went into higher-ups, into the chancellor's office, where he became the, what was your title? Vice Chancellor and Chancellor Associate? So, what was it?
Vice Provost.
Oh, okay. That's something to do with vice. Whatever. So anyway, these are kind of my recollections of our quality gentlemen here. And really what I want to leave you with, and Ryan has already painted it out, and Greg did a wonderful job. And that's telling you just what impact these people had on the department as it now is, and where it's now going. And the best thing that I can have to give you a reminder of that is that one statement that appeared in The Long Hot Summer. Do you remember that book, that movie? Where Vin Warner talked to Jody and said, "Boy, I put down a big footprint." And we are still trying to fill that footprint. So that's what my recollection.
All right. No celebration is complete without exchange of gifts. Not exchange of gifts, but the awarding of gifts. So I ask now Martyn and Jim to come up here. Yeah. So I'll explain that. So yeah, so you didn't realize it, but you're going to have to cohabitate now. We're not that far gone yet. So we have a gift for each of you, actually, and they're identical. And we have one, and not the other. So you guys can arm wrestle and walk out the door with this, and the other one will get something. And believe me, I promised Betty that I would take all the blame for it. So, Martyn, here's the card. Thank you. Jim, here's the card. And then you can both open this because you both will get a copy of this. Here, I can pick up the card. I didn't wrap it, my lovely wife wrapped it, so don't just stare at the wrap. No one can leave conversation without their very own Benjamin Knox something. You're welcome. Thank you for all the years. Yeah, or yours if you want. You guys haven't been lost for words in the past.
So, as you heard, I came here in 1976, and it was U-Haul from Philadelphia where I did my postdoc. And I came here with the expectation that I would leave within 5 or 6 years. I figured, it's not that good a place. And I would move on, but here I am, 36 years later, I'm really happy now. And I'm finally moving on. As Catherine's moving to California now. But it turned out that, as you heard, we had Nick and Ed and Jim and I were hired sort of as the vanguard of what happened with Earl Rudder. Earl Rudder was the one who made Texas A&M a university. We've only been a university for 4 years, and we've made tremendous strides in that time. So we were sort of in the vanguard of changing Texas A&M from being a cow college to being a real university. And we've participated in that. It's been a great adventure for me, and I'm sure it's been a great adventure for Jim, as it was for Nick and Ed. When I arrived here, we were in the old heat building. That some of you probably don't even know where that is on campus, but it's across from the Commons by those old greenhouses. And my office was on the first floor with Ed Meyer, who sort of pioneered molecular graphics at that time. And my lab was on the third floor, and they had to get my lab away from Najivari. He never really forgave me for taking over part of his lab. But the interesting thing about Najivari at that time was he was just becoming interested in Stradivarius's violin. And so he would wander up and down the third floor of the heat building playing his violin. And when you went in the men's room, which was next to Nick's lab, there was this large beaker asking for donations. He was into bodily fluids being the secret. But anyway, down on the first floor where my office was in Ed Meyer's suite, and Ed had this big old computer, which is probably less computing power than my iPhone right now. It was about 1 meter square, but it had an umbrella over it because it was notorious for the labs above on the second floor and then on the third floor for flooding. And so the water would pour down through the floor onto Ed's computer. So we had this elaborate umbrella. It actually worked quite well. Yeah. The other thing Ed taught me how to do was to uncross my eyes so that I could actually look at stereo images of protein structures. But the interesting thing about the flooding is that when we moved to the new building, I decided one day to test the fire alarm and the sprinkler system. So what I decided to do was allow a Bunsen burner in my clean bench to develop a leak that caught fire from the pilot light and then burned back through the rubber tubing up towards the ceiling where it set off the sprinklers. So I rushed into the lab because I think I was in the auditorium. The fire alarm went off and oh God, the damn fire alarm's going off again. So I go in my lab and the sprinklers are going. Now I don't know if any of you have ever been in a situation where sprinklers are going. You can't see a damn thing. So I'm wearing glasses, the water's coming down over my glasses. I'm trying to find the fire extinguisher to put out this little fire. I can't read the instructions on how to fire extinguisher. So I go out in the corridor. Oh yeah, that's what you do. Go back in. I put out the fire, so the fire's out within 30 seconds. No one knew how to switch off a sprinkler. But the good news is When we designed the Biochem building that you're all in now, we didn't have holes in the floor. So the second floor developed 6 inches of water, but none of it leaked through, which was great. Unfortunately, physical plant didn't know how to switch off the sprinklers. It's quite easy actually. You go to the stairwells and you see those red pipes, that's the sprinkler system. You just turn the valve. So the answer to that was to switch off the water to the building. My lab was on the second floor. We then had the water in the penthouse, the 4th floor, and the 3rd floor came through my lab all over the floor. It was kind of fun. So that was my testing of the sprinkler system. It worked very well. But let me just say, seriously though, it's been a great 36 years. I've had wonderful colleagues here. I've recruited a lot of you. I've watched you develop. I've got some good old friends here. Texas A&M has turned out to be a wonderful place to work. Tremendous opportunities. What I liked about it is you could do whatever you wanted to do as a professor. Everyone just let you do what you wanted. It's been a great career, and I've had a wonderful time. The best time I had, I think, was as an assistant professor.
Being recruited at Texas A&M in 1975 began a series of experiences I never thought anyone could survive. The first thing we noted is that a colleague and I were told, Building E, you get the entire first floor of Building E, which was built in 1944 as part of a program to modernize. And they said, don't worry about it, it'll be all updated for you. The concept of updated was that when we arrived there in August, there were 2 tables that were 20 feet wide and 40 feet long, and somebody forgot the hot water, somebody forgot the steam, somebody forgot all these things. So I spent my first summer wandering around A&M, sneaking looks at different holes along the way. And the colleagues of mine, one had to go into the high Sierras, about 12,000 feet, to study genetic differences in golden trout. Others went to study the diversity of populations in Maui. Here I was in Texas. You talk about picking the wrong place. But we had some successes. We found an old steam autoclave from 1932 that we set up on the second floor of Building E. This all worked pretty well. It looked like we were going to set things up. The physical plant people had taken galvanized pipe and run hot steam out of the building. We turned it on, and it started to fill up with superheated water. So we immediately turned it off, preceded only by a shriek from the lab down below, where the anthropologists were studying residual corn leftovers from all over Southwest Texas in brown paper bags. When they came through the ceiling, they decided that PVC would be a better kind of pipe to carry superheated steam than would some metal stuff. So as soon as it started off, every joint melted. And there was water squirting out of all the doors. And this one lady came running up from downstairs. I can remember just in the biggest panic. She says, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you're doing it, but stop. So I've used that as one of the guiding principles. I don't know what's going on, you don't know why it's happening, but stop it. It ends up that, as I look back over the years, I find a lot of enjoyment in We cloned the first piece of DNA in the late 70s, sequenced it, made a site-directed mutation in 1981, went through all of these different kinds of components, adding new opportunity as we went along. But what I remember the most was the people that worked together as we went through it. And it's an opportunity that we can have. Some labs are big, some are small. Some are very aggressive, some are very pleasant. The thing that we have to realize is that the reward is having been allowed to be a scientist, having been allowed to have tried your experiments out and find the ones that fail as good as the ones that didn't. And I recall a statement made by, in regards to Jacques Monod and
Shinjo, or the black operator.
Jacobi Monod. Sorry to drop. Jacobi Monod. Michael Pollack wrote this, or said this in his opening statement, that too brilliant a theory and too dazzling an advocacy can drive the originality out of other workers and stop them from thinking. And if you take a look at science, we all have subscribed to the idols of the tribe, for those things that bring us together. But we have to realize now that there's more of an opportunity for those things that would be necessary to separate us. And so if we can identify those idols of the tribe that dominate our thinking, then we will accomplish what we want to accomplish. Having had the opportunity to be in science, and yes, to be at Texas A&M, we too were leaving in 5 years. I'm glad to say we did. Thank you very much.